Hi, my name's Kevin Gambit, and welcome to The Mirror. In this web series, I plan on talking about, controversial opinions that permeate our society and our culture. I like to essentially, make America look in the mirror and see things for how they really are, instead of all the bullshit that goes on, on TV and social media. Um, Today's talk, I think I'd like to start with Stacy Dash. Um, Stacy Dash, said some things on CNN. A lot of people were upset. You know, I can agree with some of the things she said. I think the problem was with how she said them. First off, us as black people, we have to stop, um, being wishy-washy. We either want segregation or we want integration. Um, to in that point, Stacy had, I can see some logic in it. In reality, people are people. There's one race. There's one human race. So we should be striving towards inclusion versus separatism. Um, but with that being said, she said some comments about, getting rid of BET and there shouldn't be a Black History Month. I do have an issue with some of those comments in the sense that, she made it sound as though if, we got rid of BET tomorrow, it would be a good thing. If we got rid of Black History Month tomorrow, it would be a good thing. That is counterproductive. We have to realize as a country, and and the black community does as well, probably more so, that you know, in the future, scientifically, there will be one race. There will be one people. People will be one color. Our features will be fairly similar. The separations that we see within culture and country and all of these things will be non-existent. Probably 100, 200, 500 years. The human genome will have mixed to a point where, you know, your culture won't be, or your ethnicity or your racial identification will have nothing to do with your external features or skin pigmentation. In the future, everybody's going to be the same color, and so your identity will essentially be handed down to you from your family, from your culture. There'll probably be, you know, paler skinned people who, walk around listening to rap music, sagging their pants, and things of that nature. And we essentially have to realize, as black people, that we we need to be looking towards those times, right? And we need to see and position ourselves where we can take advantage of some of the cultural and social benefits that will be taking place in the future. Um, with that being said, some of the comments that Stacy made it seem as though those things like that's today, and that's far from the case. If we didn't have a BT, if we didn't have a Black History Month, we wouldn't learn about any of those things. We wouldn't learn about W.E.B. Du Bois. We wouldn't learn about Matthew A. Hansen. We wouldn't know about any of those things had we not had a Black History Month. And BET, like it or not, whether you believe it is an example of black culture or whether it essentially is just catering to what external forces have pushed onto the black community to make money, and that's what they're showing, versus things that kind of uplift the community. That has nothing to do with it. If we didn't have this channel for our type of programming, we wouldn't have as many movies and TV shows and black actors and actresses as we do in modern day times, right? Because then essentially we'd be subservient to outsiders of the community, right? You can't tell a bird how to fly if you don't have wings, right? So, her saying that we need to get rid of BT, we need to get rid of Black History Month, while the logic behind we shouldn't have separation racially, and we shouldn't have these different channels is correct. The time for right now it's impossible for those things to take place, right? So what we need to do is include all of the different types of racial, ethnic, um, socio-economical genres in every stint in this gumbo of America, and try to put them out there so the people who like those things can enjoy them and participate in them. We can't just get rid of them flat out. Um, so I can understand and I can kind of sympathize with her because in reality, when there's one racial structure in this country, and America will probably be the first country that will be predominantly one race. I don't know what that race will be. I don't know what term they'll use for that race, but I don't think it'll be predominantly black or predominantly white. Now, you can say, if you just talk about pigmentation, that the white race in the future will go extinct, right? But you can kind of say in the same sense that the black culture or black race may go extinct because the things that we consider to be um, black may not be the same things that are considered black in the future. I'll give you an example. Our lips and our noses, our brows, these things may go the way of the dinosaur. So where there may be pigmented people in this country, there may not be quote unquote black people. What I mean? Just like Indians aren't considered black people. Um, Hindus aren't considered black people. Um, I can name a whole list of darker skinned. Dominicans don't consider themselves black people. I can go down a list of ethnic groups who don't necessarily identify themselves as being black, nor do external forces identify them as being black. So in the future, when all the races mix, there'll probably be something similar to that, where we'll all have skin pigmentation, we'll all have some melanin in our skin, but whether there'll be a black culture or not, is yet to be seen, right? But the one thing for sure is that there will not be, a white ethnicity because the pale skin will go away, right? So us as black people, we need to look at that as a fact, all right? That's a fact. So we should be looking at trying to bring in those external forces, the powers that be, and not make them black, but essentially get them in a mental space where they kind of understand the black position, right? So as the races mix, decades go by, um, our culture, what we've left and what we brought to the world, especially here in the United States, will be permeated the correct way, versus people. Your whole neighborhood may look the same. We all may be my complexion in the future, but will we all identify with black culture of today 100 years from now? And that's what we need to be thinking about. We're very short-sighted as a people. We worry about things like they're not nominating um, black movies at the Academy, which is fucking bullshit. When you think about the Academy, um, it would have probably been a better argument to say, well, how many black people are in the Academy versus, well, they didn't nominate any black movies or black actors. First of all, we have to ask ourselves, we have to look in the mirror, right? This is what this series is called. It's the mirror, right? We need to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, how many black actors or actresses deserved a nomination for a stellar performance, right? Don't get me wrong. I'm all about anything black. I wouldn't say that I'm a pro black man, but I am about supporting our people and supporting our culture and helping the next man along if I can. But in reality, I have to look at well, who's Will Smith? That performance he put on in Concussion, did it deserve a nomination? Fuck no. That movie was garbage. I seen interviews where African people, African actors and people who are from Africa said that they were offended by Will Smith's portrayal of an African in the movie. They said that his jargon and his the way he presented himself as being African was almost stereotypical. You know what I mean? And they were offended by it, right? So we can't say, well, oh, Will Smith deserved a nomination. No, he didn't fucking deserve a nomination, right? 12 Years a Slave did not deserve a nomination. While 12 Years a Slave was a good movie, was it a great movie? Fuck no. Was Selma a great movie? Fuck no. I watched Selma, I watched 12 Years a Slave. They're decent movies, right? But they're not, Oscar caliber, Academy Award winning movies, right? We have to get out of that space as a community where just because you talk about slavery or just because you talk about things that, hurt us in the past, like the murder of Dr. Martin Luther King, the murder of Malcolm X, the assassination of the Black Panthers, whole legacy, right? Instead of worrying about those things, we need to be asking ourselves, whatever we put out into the world, is it to the highest standard that they can't, say, well, we're not gonna, um, we're not going to nominate any black movie because there aren't any. We should be able to say, well, there's a million black movies and they're all fantastic. They hands down beat out any of these other movies that are out there. You guys didn't nominate any of them. We can't say that right now, right? You can't say that with Selma. You can't say that with 12 Years a Slave. And you definitely can't say that with a movie like Concussion, right? I don't even want to bash Concussion anymore, so I'm just gonna leave that out of the conversation and just essentially say Concussion was not a good movie and Will Smith was not, his performance in the movie was not, stellar. So I'm just gonna, go ahead and put that out there, right? If we talk about other historical black movies, like Selma and 12 Years a Slave, um, while these movies were decent, they weren't as good as, let's say, their predecessors. When I think about a movie like King, I think was a very well put together, better interpretation of Dr. Martin Luther King's um, life than Selma was. Selma to me was just another black movie. It's like, I heard someone say, I forget who it was, that they were tired of seeing black movies. And I think it was around the time Django came out. In a sense, that kind of is correct. I almost feel as though our people, like our directors, the Spike Lees, and whoever else is out there as big name, they try to like reinvent themselves by putting out these period pieces that talk about the same stuff. Now, again, I'm all for everything black. I don't think that just because one movie came out that we can't put out another movie about Dr. Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or whoever. I think we should keep talking about these people as much as possible. But the way that we go about it is ludicrous to me. You can't just put out any kind of movie and go, well, it needs to be nominated because it's talking about Dr. Martin Luther King, or it needs to be nominated because it's talking about Malcolm X. You know, you have to look at the movie in and of itself. Like at the end of the day, the Academy is there to award actors and actresses and movies on merit, right? If we say, well, they don't have any black movies, but we can look in the mirror as a society and as a black culture and say, well, these movies weren't that great, then we shouldn't be complaining that they weren't nominated. What we should be doing is getting on our game and going, hey, well, that movie was a good movie. I can see why they didn't nominate it. So the next time somebody comes out with a period piece about one of our black heroes, us as a community should be doing everything in our power to make sure that the movie is held to the highest standard when it comes to directing, producing, who's at the end of the day. I think that um, us as black people need to be more real within the community. I see so many things as far as like the Black, Lives Matter movement, um, the music we listen to, how we present ourselves in the community and to the world at large. We essentially, we want our cake and eat it too, and that's just not how the world works. You know, um, I'm not saying that Stacy Dash in and of herself was altogether wrong, but I'm not going to say she's altogether right. I think that we have to look at the motives and why they chose Stacey Dash. We also have to, take apart what she said and find the truth in it versus going, oh, she's 100% wrong. Stacey Dash is a sellout. Because I don't think Stacey Dash is a sellout. I think that there are people who are fine with how our community is essentially, excuse me, how our community is essentially, structured at the moment, and are people who want more, right? And then in between there, you have, the Stacey Dashes of the world, and the different, well-to-do black people in society who are educated, right, who see the writing on the wall, but essentially are ostracized because we don't have enough educated black prominent people. So I really think that we need to start looking in the mirror, asking ourselves the tough questions, asking ourselves, what do we want from the black community? What do we want people outside of the community to see when they look at the black community, right? A lot of times, we go on the world stars and we excuse guys for wearing wave caps and their hats backwards. And there's nothing wrong with that. I grew up that way. I still, you know, I wouldn't say I like to dress that way anymore, but I'm still drawn to that aspect of black life just for the simple fact that I grew up that way. You know what I mean? Um, but at the same time, we're in a unique position in the world where black people essentially don't have a culture. In reality, there's going to be people who don't like this. There's going to be people who say, hold it, no, our culture was stolen from us, and they're right, right? But we have to accept the fact that it was stolen. Usually, when somebody steals something from you, right, you don't get it back, right? And that's essentially where black people in America are now. They stole our culture. We don't have one here, right? We've tried to regain our, African heritage, and it didn't work. In the '60s, it didn't work. People were wearing the kente cloths, and um, people were, just trying to learn Swahili and black power, black power, black power. It didn't work. They killed all our leaders. Nobody stepped up and filled those shoes, and now we are where we are. We've essentially assimilated to American culture and imperialist European culture. We've essentially been assimilated into it, right? But we're still on the outside of it. So what we should be doing as a black community is asking ourselves, well, what do we want to show the world? What face do we want to put on for the world and start taking steps towards it? Big problem with the black community is the fact that we don't set long-term goals. That's why for any other ethnic group that exists on this planet, I have to say, are behind for every. And I'm not talking about just black Americans. I'm talking about black people as a whole, even going back to Africa. We are the last man in the race because we don't set long-term goals. When you look at the Jewish people were slaves, right? You can't go by and call a Jewish person, a slave and have them get offended, right? Because they persevere, they set long term goals, they put themselves strategically throughout every type of system that exists, right? Whether it came from learning the stock market, getting lawyers and judges that are Jewish. They did all of those things, and this is centuries in the making. This is centuries in the making. And us as black people, we can't do that. We essentially every man for himself. Nobody's looking out for anybody else, and we've been assimilated into the American dream. Just work hard, and you'll get what you want. When in reality, these people did work hard. People who founded this country, they worked hard, but they were um, collective. You know what I mean? They worked hard together, and we don't do that. We need to start. We need to start looking at the writing on the wall and saying to ourselves, what do we want our community to be? What do we want our community to be known for? Right? And start, taking a step towards putting that bug in our children's ears. I mean, we need to start pushing school. I'm not gonna say school's the way that it has to be, but and there's more black people in school now than ever before, right? but we need to be, socially, economically brainwashing ourselves, so we can get the bullshit out of the black community and invite the good shit in. You know what I mean? Like, what reason does a grown man, need to be sagging his pants? You know what I mean? Like, there's no reason for that shit. You know what I mean? That's not our culture. You know what I mean? Some people will try to say it is, but that's not our culture. That's essentially like, let me draw a dick on your forehead, and because a bunch of people think it's cool, I'm supposed to accept that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got a dick on your forehead, dude. Like, there's nothing cool about that shit. You know what I mean? We're so delusioned and so, disenfranchised now to the point where, there are young black men running around wearing dresses, um, calling them tall t-shirts, and just all this crazy fuck shit. And nobody's checking that. Nobody in the black community as a whole is checking it. You know what I mean? People who do shit that doesn't help the community shouldn't be allowed to benefit from the community. You know what I mean? When I see a dude wearing a dress and then I see my son or, you know, my nephew or, my little cousins or whoever put on a dress, I should have a problem with that person, right? Everybody in the community should have a problem with that person, right? It shouldn't just be something that, well, he making money and, oh, that dress costs $800 and he wore it and put some Timbs on with it. Like, come on, man, that's whack. You know what I mean? Like, we should be going, oh, this nigga wearing dresses, and we ain't fucking with him no more, right? So I say all of that to say this. You know, while we can be upset with institutions like the Grammys, the Academy, and Oscars, and all of these, awards and all that stuff, we have to ask ourselves as a community, one, do we deserve these awards? One, and two, do we want them? Do we want to be a part of um, that structure that's over there? Do we want to have our own structure, right? If we have our own structure and we organize it in such a way that it's better and it dwarfs the old structure that they got over there, right? When the time comes for, all of the races to start mixing and, 100, 200 years go by, right? The Oscars will be just something like, some award the white people had. And then whatever we come up with will be the national standard or the standard that everybody aspires to versus it being, that's the black awards. The black awards are down here and the white awards are up here. We need to break the black awards way up here, right? So then the white people start going, oh man, we need to go catch up with them black people. They awards, they have so much structure and they got all these categories and it's so good. And they dress so sharp and, all of these things, right? Make them want to be like us instead of us wanting to be like them. It bothers me when, people like Jada Pinkett who have, historically been pro-black in all of her movies and anything she's ever said. Essentially just take, in my opinion, just catch feelings because her husband made a whack movie and nobody liked it, nobody went to see it, and now she's mad that he didn't get an award. Name me an award or a black movie or actor who should have got nominated. Honestly, not just, well, this movie came out and it didn't get nominated, or this actor did this and he didn't get nominated. I'm talking about somebody who stood out so much so that they deserve to have an award. You know what I mean? Like, and there, I can't say that in the past year anybody's done that. I can't point my finger and say so and so was in this movie. That movie was great, and he acted his ass off in it. I can't say that. There's there's black actors working all the time, but some people are just in movies. Just because you're in a movie doesn't mean you deserve an award for being in a movie. And just because a movie comes out doesn't mean that it deserves to be nominated. I think I've gone on far enough. I can say a whole lot more, um, but I think I'm going to cut it off here. Again, this is the Mirror. My name's Kevin Gambit. You can check for all my social media, emails and Facebooks and all that other stuff in the video. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can put a comment at the bottom, and check for the next video. Peace out.